Hey, everybody. It's Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Another 3-3-0 to go Cavaliers NBA show. How you doing? I've got some noise, construction going on behind me. Well, like way behind me. Directly behind me, I just have horns again, which I continue to bring back for every episode because it seems that you guys seem to enjoy those. So, why take away your favorite part of the show, right? We've got a lot of stuff today. Obviously, the Cavaliers still in the throes of their coaching search, which I've expressed before I find very uneventful. Doesn't mean it's bad, just means it's not real exciting. There's not a lot of buzz, but that's not very important. What's important is that they find the right guy, right? That's all that matters. Secondly, the Los Angeles Lakers, their coaching search has a little bit to do with the Cavs coaching search, and I'll get into that in a second. And then, of course, Donovan Mitchell news, kind of news, Cavs rumors, all that stuff is still flying around as it does every offseason. And the Cavs are no different. The Cavs are probably, as far as the rumor mill goes, they're right one of the teams at the top, because they need to hire a new coach. They need to sign Donovan Mitchell to a contract extension. We have a thing on hoopswire.com today that they're probably going to sign Evan Mobley to a maximum contract extension this offseason, which is not a big shock. That's what they were supposed to do once his rookie deal, once it became an opportunity for them to be able to do that. That's this summer. It's really a formality. Isaac Okoro, we had some stuff on the website today about Isaac Okoro, going to be a restricted free agent. Talk a little bit about that. And of course, we have, on top of everything else, not a big deal, not a high priority, but the Cavs have to make a draft pick. That's just a couple weeks away. June 26th, the Cavs have the number 20th overall pick. Can't trade it. Which they can trade it. They just have to make a pick, which, again, that goes way back 40 years ago to the Ted Stepien era when Ted Stepien owned the team. A lot of you kids don't remember that. I barely remember it, but I can tell you that he just traded away the Cavs' entire future. And it's really too bad that Twitter wasn't around then, or X as it's called now, or Facebook, or 3-3-0 to go wasn't around in 1983, because we would have had a field day with Ted Stepien, the Cavs owner, and the NBA had to make a rule that you're not allowed to trade picks in back-to-back seasons, first-round picks anyway, in back-to-back seasons, because of the Cavs. That's why that rule exists. So the Cavs have traded away so many picks in the Donovan Mitchell trade. They've got to keep this one this year, and they've got to make a pick. And if you want to trade it after you draft a player, you can do that. You have to trade the player. You can't trade the pick. But I can tell you this. Any, casual fans, forget it. But diehards that I've talked to aren't even excited about the Cavs' number 20 pick. Because chances are, number 20, you're not going to get any kind of immediate help, unless you get real lucky. So, not a whole lot of discussion about that number 20 pick. In previous years, when I first started covering the Cavs, when LeBron James first left, the draft was everything in Cleveland. It was the whole reason to be excited about the Cavs back in 2012, 2011, 2013, before LeBron James came back a second time. So anyway, I've been talking a lot, quickly, fast. I'm going to slow down. James Borrego. Are you excited about James Borrego? If you enjoy following the Cavs coaching search, he has suddenly become the so-called leader in the clubhouse. I guess I'll tell you this. I think James Borrego did an excellent job with the Charlotte Hornets. Not a lot of pizzazz. You know, you're not going to get a lot of run in the media if the guy you're choosing or the guy who is your front runner is a former coach of the Charlotte Hornets and a current assistant with the New Orleans Pelicans. That just doesn't get a lot of people excited. Some people don't even know that the New Orleans Pelicans exist, which is not entirely true. Larry Nance Jr., of course, plays there. C.J. McCollum from Camp Glen Oak High, of course, plays there. The two biggest Cleveland Browns fans in the NBA both play for the New Orleans Pelicans. But they don't tweet about the Browns as much anymore because there's a lot of Saints fans there. So they don't want to get them all mad. I don't know why there would be Saints fans in New Orleans. If I were an NFL fan in New Orleans, I'd still root for the Browns. Maybe. But anyway, so James Borrego is not going to get a lot of people excited, right? Because he's just not a big name. You know, it wouldn't be a splashy hire. And nobody in the Cavs search is a splashy hire. We've talked about Kenny Atkinson, who seems to be the number 2 guy, or maybe is tied with James Borrego. Well, Kenny Atkinson coached the Brooklyn Nets when they weren't very good. They were okay. They had some injury issues 4 years ago. He did a fine job, too. James Borrego did a fine job in Charlotte. They won 10 games in each of the last 3 seasons, 23, 33, 43. Then they fired him. And you know, then he joined Willie Green and David Griffin in New Orleans. So, I mean, both those guys did a nice job. They're not Dan Hurley, though. But guess what? We saw how it went for the Lakers when they went after Dan Hurley. Now they have egg on their face. They went after Dan Hurley, put their entire coaching search on hold, and we've heard J.J. Redick and James Borrego in Los Angeles, and we heard that before. Those were their 2 candidates. Former NBA shooting guard J.J. Redick, no coaching experience at all, who is now an analyst with ESPN and probably, and I don't, you know, my least favorite analyst. I'll keep it on a personal level. My least favorite analyst on ESPN, probably my least favorite analyst among my least favorite in history. And I don't think JJ's bad. He just doesn't say anything. He doesn't add to the broadcast. But you know what? He's still learning. He's still new. 39 years old, just recently retired, just recently got into broadcasting. And, you know, I don't want to bury the guy. But I'm just saying at this point in his career, please get into coaching because you're not doing anything in broadcasting. So anyway, Los Angeles Lakers, they offered Dan Hurley the job, UConn's Dan Hurley. I said on the show last week, no way he takes that job. It's a terrible job right now, especially for somebody who just won back-to-back national championships at UConn. Dan Hurley admitted today, went on a media tour today, and admitted his wife was mad that he was even talking to the Lakers. She said, our life's perfect right now. What are you doing? That's what he said, she said. He said she got violently angry, which he was kind of joking. I hope he was joking. But he said his wife was very upset about this, the whole Lakers thing. And we all knew he wasn't really going to do it. Why would you leave a place where you're the king at the University of Connecticut and college basketball? The coaches are king in college basketball. And that's what Dan Hurley is, especially when you've won back-to-back national titles. Why'd you go somewhere else? Even if it is the Lakers. Yeah, they're traditionally, you know, people love the Lakers traditionally. Almost like the Yankees of the NBA. Them are the Celtics. Celtics, by the way, are about ready to pass them in total titles with 18. Lakers will have 17. So that, you know, look, and I don't envision the Lakers winning another championship anytime soon. And Dan Hurley wouldn't have changed that. The Lakers have had 6 coaches since 2011. Let's go over them. Mike Brown, Mike D'Antoni, help me out here, Byron Scott. So 2 former Cavs coaches that didn't last. Luke Walton was an assistant with the Cavs last year. Not sure if he'll be back. Frank Vogel, Darvin Ham. There's all 6. Boy, do I need to get out more. but that's 6 since 2011. That's 6. So they're basically hiring and firing a coach every 2 years. Why would Dan Hurley want to get mixed up in that, especially, again, when LeBron James, as great as he is going to be 40 years old? And guess what? He's their best player. You want your best player to be 40 years old? I mean, LeBron's different, obviously best 40-year-old in history, but other than maybe Kareem. Kareem had a pretty good run at 40. But LeBron, I think at 40, Kareem really started to show that he was on his last legs. Whereas LeBron, he's slowing down, but he's got a couple years left, I would think, as long as he can stay healthy, which is always the case, which is always what you're fighting when you're 40. Trust me, somebody who's older than 40, I can tell you I fight that just waking up in the morning. That hurts. Guess it's going to hurt for forever. But anyway, so the Lakers, bad job. We ran a story on hoopswire.com that the Cavs' job is more attractive than the Lakers' job to coaching candidates. Does that surprise you? It shouldn't. The Lakers, to me, unless they do something drastic, are clearly on the way down. The Cavs should still be on the way up. They really should. And guess what? They've proven, even though last year was kind of clunky after the All-Star break, they've taken the next progressive, natural step. Play-in tournament, first round, Eastern Conference semifinals. So they've been taking those steps. The Lakers are getting into the playoffs through the play-in tournament 2 years in a row. Last year, Western Conference Finals, kind of caught a few breaks along the way there. This year, bounced in the first round. So to me, the Lakers are going in the other direction. And I just don't see where that is an attractive job unless you're somebody like J.J. Redick, who's never coached before. You're tight with LeBron James. If you're J.J. Redick, this is a great opportunity if you get this job. If you're James Borrego, it's probably a decent opportunity to affiliate yourself with the Lakers. The problem is, if you're James Borrego, you need to realize I'm kind of a no-name guy, kind of like Frank. Well, I don't want to say Frank Vogel was no name, but not exciting, very vanilla. That's how James Borrego comes across in terms of being a big name, a vanilla guy, which nothing wrong with that. I'm pretty vanilla myself. I had a few other jokes in there, but I'll just leave those out. Anyway, so James Borrego is not a real exciting, pizzazzy coach. So if he gets hired in Tinseltown, the odds are the Lakers are just going to blame him right away every time something goes wrong. Whereas J.J. Redick maybe get a little more leeway because he's new. Maybe J.J. Redick would be a good coach for them, like Steve Kerr was coming out of the broadcast booth for the Warriors. Maybe J.J. Redick can install some fire in them, almost as a teammate as opposed to a coach. So, I just think if you're James Borrego and you're offered the Lakers job and the Cavs job and everything else being equal, I'd feel more secure in Cleveland. You don't have a star who's going to run you out of town. You don't have, and I'm not saying LeBron James would immediately do that with James Borrego. I'm just saying there's a lot of drama in LA for a reason. And that was the case before LeBron James got there. Anytime you're a popular franchise and constantly covered like the Lakers are and the Celtics, I mean, the Lakers really probably the Yankees of the NBA, and the Celtics are like the Red Sox. So I would say that LA has a little bit more of an intense kind of scrutiny about them. And I think if you're a coach, you know that when you take that job. Yeah, I'm getting hired to be fired. And along the way, I'll probably be criticized the whole time. But guess what? I get to coach LeBron James, get to coach Anthony Davis, and get to coach really with a traditional power. There's a lot of appeal to that. And guess what else, if you're a coach, if I survive 2 years, which it's like entering the Bermuda Triangle. Nobody survives 2 years anymore with that team. But if you survive 2 years, LeBron probably going to be retiring. The Lakers are one of those teams that just naturally get free agents to go there. because they've got celebrities sitting on the sidelines. They've got, almost celebrity owner in Jeannie Buss, who's married to comedian and actor Jay Moore. I mean, there's just a lot going on there, which is funny because the Clippers, they get Billy Crystal, and that's about it. And Billy Crystal, hasn't done anything in 25 years. So I think that there's a lot of appeal to the Lakers' job for that reason. Cavs' job has more appeal for basketball reasons. So if you're a basketball coach, your front office is probably more stable. I mean, you don't have all the drama that you're going to have in LA. You might have some drama, but it's going to be totally different than the drama you have in LA. So with that in mind, if you're James Borrego and that's the guy who the Cavs want, they probably will get him. They probably will get him. And I'll tell you this, it seems to me from everything I've heard that Borrego was taken aback like the rest of us when Dan Hurley was interviewed in LA. James Borrego had already talked to them. And then they bring in this, they decide we're going to talk to the back-to-back national championship college coach. And James Borrego and JJ Redick are kind of like, what's going on? I don't know that that's true. That's everything I've heard. I think Redick, it's not going to impact because he just wants to coach. And he wants to coach the Lakers. James Borrego, he may be a little bothered like that, a little insulted. Hey, I coach an NBA team. What's Dan Hurley ever done? You know what I think? I think Dan Hurley's an excellent college coach. But you know what? I also thought Billy Donovan was an excellent college coach. Billy Donovan, what's he done in the NBA? I think he's a good coach still. I think he's a good NBA coach. It's a players' league, though. And Billy Donovan, without the players, is not going to get it done. If you gave Billy Donovan a grade on his coaching in the NBA, both the Thunder and the Bulls, you'd probably give him a B minus. You're talking about a guy who won back-to-back national championships at Florida. Dan Hurley, very similar personality in college, very fiery. Billy Donovan was very fiery in college. He's really laid back now in the NBA. Can't be real fiery in the NBA because it's a players' league. So I just don't foresee, I didn't think Dan Hurley was going to work in LA if he took that job. I just thought there's too much going on there. There's just too much. It was 20 years to the summer, by the way, that the Lakers offered Mike Krzyzewski of Duke their head coaching job. 20 years ago. Kobe Bryant was a huge Mike Krzyzewski fan. Kobe Bryant, if he had gone to college, would have gone to Duke. But so the Lakers at that time tried to hire Mike Krzyzewski, did the same thing. Big media circus, flew him out. We didn't have Twitter then, though. We didn't have iPhones then either, 2004. iPhones came along in 2006. Know how I know that? Because the last time before last season that the Kings, that was my gauge of when the Sacramento Kings made the playoffs. They hadn't made the playoffs since the iPhone came out until last year. Not this year, last year. This year they lost in the play-in tournament. But Mike Brown took them to the playoffs. They won the Pacific Division last year, the Kings. The NBA's oldest franchise, Sacramento Kings. Back when they were the Rochester Royals, first NBA franchise. What do you think about that? Before the Celtics, before the Knicks, the Sacramento Kings. Guess how many championships they've won? I think one. As the Cincinnati Royals, maybe? The 60s? So I just stumped myself. I don't know. We'll have to look that up. I think with Oscar Robertson, Jerry Lucas, maybe. I know Bob Cousy coached them when he was the Cincinnati Royals. He actually came back to coach like 8 years after he retired with the Celtics as a player coach with the Cincinnati Royals. And you want to hear a funny story? My dad told me that the Royals played a game. This would have been 1970. And Bob Cousy would have been like 41 at this point. Because Bob Cousy, we actually ran a story about him on the website today. He's 95. So it was 1970. So he's like 40, 41 years old. And my dad said the Cincinnati Royals were playing a game at the old Cleveland Arena. My dad went to the game, and he said Bob Cousy was player coach of the Royals, and he checked himself in to inbound a pass. Like there was a timeout. Bob Cousy said, as the coach, I'll come in and inbound the ball. And my dad said he came in to the game, Cleveland Arena, Cincinnati Royals. I can't remember who he said they were playing. Came in the game. Bob Cousy went to inbound the ball. And, you only get 5 seconds to inbound the ball. Well, they got to 4, and he called timeout before before it was ruled a turnover. And my dad said Bob Cousy checked himself back out and never put himself back in. So that was my, lone Bob Cousy in Cleveland story as a player. Checked himself in, because before, when he was playing with the Celtics in the 50s and 60s, there was no NBA team in Cleveland. So that was his lone experience, Bob Cousy as a player in Cleveland. And it was before the Cavaliers, the Royals would play some games at Cleveland Arena. So that's kind of cool. Bob Cousy couldn't get himself in the game. Couldn't inbound the ball. I'm all right. I tried. I'm taking myself back to coaching. So, and some people have suggested that maybe, the Lakers should just hire LeBron James as player coach at this age. Who knows? I don't think they will, but gone are those days. Remember those days? Probably not. I don't know when the last time the NBA had a player coach. It was probably in the early 80s. I know I think Mike Dunleavy Sr. was a player coach with the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. We'll have to look that up. But, Bill Russell, of course, led the Celtics to a championship as a player coach. Bob Cousy did not have that success with the Cincinnati Royals. So, in case you're still following along somehow, some way, let's go back to the Cavs coaching search, which is if James Borrego is upset with the Lakers and the Lakers kind of lost him, their loss could be the Cavs' gain if that's who the Cavs want. If the Lakers come back to James Borrego and say, look, here's why we went after Dan Hurley. Would you still be interested? And James Borrego says no, because, I kind of felt disrespected there, which sounds silly, but it happens all the time in pro sports. Somebody who covers pro sports, I think, well, that's silly. They're going to give you millions. But we find things to be upset about, I guess. So that if that's who the Cavs want, I think that the Cavs would be James Borrego's pick as well. Now, we still have Kenny Atkinson. I think he's very much involved in the search. Today, Thursday, I don't know when you're watching this, but today, Thursday, June 13th, the Cavs interviewed Micah Nori, who is the assistant from the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's an Ohio native, Middleton, Ohio. I talked about this last week. Same town that produced NBA legend Jerry Lucas. Cincinnati Royals again. I'll try to avoid talking about them anymore, although I know I have one follower on my Facebook fan page who's a huge Cincinnati Royals fan because he went back to grew up in the area, and now I believe he's a Kings fan. So anyway, I think that I would think that other than Kenny Atkinson, Micah Nori is probably the other true candidate. I can say this. I still think the Cavs want to interview Alex Jensen, who's an assistant with the Dallas Mavericks, because, he has that connection from Utah. Alex Jensen was a fantastic player at the University of Utah, later became coach at several spots, assistant coach, was the head coach of the then Canton, now Cleveland Charge. So he's familiar with the Cavs organization, familiar with Kobe Altman, and certainly familiar with Donovan Mitchell. And, he coached under Quinn Snyder in Utah. But now Alex Jensen is assistant under Jason Kidd with the Mavericks, who are currently in the finals, about ready to get bounced. It's not a matter of if, but when. And because nobody's ever come back from a 3-0 deficit, as you know. And these Dallas Mavericks certainly aren't coming back from a 3-0 deficit because they're matching up terribly with the Celtics. It is probably the best matchup of any of the contenders that the Celtics could have asked for. The Mavericks just don't have the big guys and the wings to match up with Boston. Whereas somebody like, say, Minnesota with Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards probably would have matched up better with Boston, a little more athleticism and all that, a little more size. Denver, of course, being the defending champs. But, look, give Kyrie Irving, obviously Luka Doncic, credit for getting the Mavs there out of the tough Western Conference. Just terrible matchup against Celtics. Now, in Dallas, Dallas could have matched up better with some of those other Eastern Conference teams if anybody else had been able to get out of the East. But just obviously, it's tough to watch the finals right now. I've tried. And we write recaps. I write recaps after every game of the finals. And it's just, there's just not a whole lot there. Dallas has not been real competitive. I know, look, fell behind third quarter, 21 points in game 3, then came back, cut it to 3. And then you just kind of knew they weren't getting over the top. And then Doncic fouls out. I don't know. They look more than ever like a two-man team, which I thought that they stopped looking like a two-man team during the Western Conference Finals. Well, all the playoffs, when they beat the Clippers, they beat the Thunder, they beat the Timberwolves, and they look like a team in the truest sense with two really dynamic scorers in Kyrie and Luka. Now it looks like Kyrie and Luka trying to get going. Just a terrible matchup. Boston stacked. So, that's something the Cavs got to keep in mind. And the one way to beat those kind of teams, like the Bostons of the world, is through ball movement, creativity offensively, getting Evan Mobley to rise to another level. I think that you got to go out and get another wing. How do you do that? Well, you probably trade Darius Garland. I think that's probably something that they're going to look into. I know we're hearing, the Cavs are, sticking to their core 4 of Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. I think that Darius Garland could be on the way out. I've talked about that before, and we've heard the talk that if Donovan Mitchell signs the contract extension, which I'm going to tell you right now he's going to do. I don't have any inside information on that. It's a total gut feeling. But the more that this season comes along, off season, the more we near that day, which is the end of June, Donovan Mitchell is going to sign that contract extension, a max offer. I believe that. I think the Cavs believe it. They're very optimistic. I can tell you this. I haven't talked to the Cavs. I have talked to some other GMs and executives. They believe it too. That's why I believe it. If people had been telling me, hey, it seems up in the air, blah, blah, blah. Every agent I talk to, which is probably 3 or 4 since last week, has said that they believe Donovan Mitchell will sign the extension with the Cavs for a multitude of reasons. Number 1 being money. That's why I'd sign an extension. Number 2, he's happy. If you're happy somewhere, why go anywhere else? Especially, why go anywhere else? For some people, it'd be money. Well, I'm happy here, but I want more money. Donovan Mitchell, if he's happy here, nobody can pay him more than the Cleveland Cavaliers. So take the extension. New York's always going to be there. Brooklyn will always be there. Miami will always be there. You're 27 years old. You want to go play in those places. You got 4 years. Sign the extension, see how it goes, make your money now. Because, when you're an NBA player, professional athlete, once you stop, nobody's paying you. Unless you're making like $350 a week to go on television. I'm sure they make more than that. But you know what I'm saying? So I think Donovan Mitchell is going to sign the extension, and I think the Cavs are going to look to trade Darius Garland. I know people have said Darius Garland and Jared Allen. I don't think they're going to look to trade Jared Allen. Because then you're going to have another problem. You're going to have a problem of a guy who's a double-double machine, doesn't need the ball, and is a great teammate, and is an excellent defender. You got to hold a fill if you get rid of him. And they, people are saying, well, you got to, they're crowded with Mobley. I think a good coach makes that work. I think it works okay now. Defensively, if you're going to face the Boston Celtics and you've got to face Kristaps Porzingis and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown going to the basket, not to mention the ageless Al Horford and Sam Hauser and those guys, Celtics have great size. Well, the Cavs already have two of the best rim protectors in the NBA. And guess what? The Celtics have been okay offensively. They've been pretty good. They've been fantastic defensively. And that's where they're winning the championship. The Cavs have an opportunity to be fantastic defensively. They're pretty good already. Get another wing, you could be better. But you're not far from fantastic with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. A lot of teams would kill for rim protectors like that. To have two of them on the floor together, you need it to work. You need it to work offensively. Okay, work it out. It's not that bad. It's not something that's irreparable. For fans, media, sometimes, we're like, boy, you can't fix that. That's why you have NBA professional coaches to fix that. While we're doing the rest of our jobs, that's what they do for their job. They go figure it out. And I think you make that work. I'm totally against trading Jared Allen, for the record. I'll report that the Cavs are looking into it. Teams are interested, all that. But if I'm a Cavs fan, no. You're not going to get back equal value for him. Even if you package him with Darius Garland, you're not getting equal value back for that. Now, all of a sudden, you're splitting up your core. Let me tell you something. The Cavs are where they should be. This is where they plan to be. They plan to get to the Eastern Conference semifinals this year. I know as fans and media in Cleveland, we're used to, hey, when we get to the playoffs, we're the Cavs, we go all the way to the finals. Anything else is unsatisfactory. Well, that's because you had LeBron James in his prime. Those days are long gone. And that's okay, because the Cavs should be making progress as they are, which is get into the playoffs, advance around. If you have to, get a better coach, figure it out with Mobley and Allen. They're still young. There's a lot to be said for familiarity. And while Boston looks like world beaters against the Mavs because it's a terrible matchup for Dallas, I don't think they're that much better than everybody else. I think they're really good, especially with Porzingis. I mean, he's like a 7'2" cheat code, But the Cavs are one of the few teams that have the size to match that. When you're talking about Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, you have the size right there. If you give that up, you give up a lot of rim protection there. Run the risk of what happens if Evan Mobley gets in foul trouble. I just don't think you're going to get a double-double guy who doesn't need the ball and is loved by his teammates and is a defensive force in return for Jared Allen. And that's what you're giving up. People say trade Jared Allen for Brandon Ingram. Well, the Pelicans are going to do that. Number two, there goes your rim. There goes your protection at the basket. There goes a guy who, obviously Brandon Ingram's a superior player, don't get me wrong. But is he a fit? Everything in the NBA is about fit. Otherwise, the Phoenix Suns would have won the championship with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. That's what everybody's telling me is going to win the championship at the start of the year. Who's stopping these guys? Everybody. Because they don't fit. And that's what you need to do. You need to find fits. Cavs need more outside shooting, without a question. Do they need to break up the backcourt? Probably. And you're not moving Donovan Mitchell. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with giving up on the backcourt. Let's see. Scott says, I tell you all the time that I'm against Allen being traded. The defense would suffer. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that the Cavs really have hung their hat on defense. And that's kind of why they're looking for an offensive coach. Because they feel very comfortable with who they are defensively. So why not go out and get an offensive coach and, take your strengths and keep those, which is your defense, and then maybe even improve the defense with some personnel. Maybe you get a decent defender back. If you do trade Garland, you get a pretty good defender back. That would be theoretically, what you're trying to do at the point guard position. And who knows? Maybe you keep Darius Garland. Here's the thing that I try to stress to fans all the time. You have until February to make a trade. So if you don't feel comfortable with anything right now, maybe give it a month or so into the season, figure it out. And if you decide, Garland and Mitchell aren't working still, well, you're October, November, you've got 2 or 3 months to work out a deal. There's no pressure. You don't have to feel like we need to make a trade going into the season. Why? Because you want to be really good in October? Cavs have done that already. They've been really good in October or November. This year it was January. No, make your trade. Now, if you feel like, hey, here's a deal that's too good to pass up in August or June or July, then sure, make it. If not, don't just trade because the fans want you to make a trade or they want you to sign a free agent. The season only starts in October. It's not your last chance to make a move. Got all the way till February. So wait if you have to wait. Coaching hire needs to be done now. Preferably before my next show. That way I can rip the guy. No, I'm just kidding. I could build him up and give Cavs fans hope. Because that's what I'm kind of here for, I feel like. Along with my striking good looks and boyish charm, I try to make Cavs fans feel excited and give them a reason to watch us here on 330 to go. I would also say that I think that I'd like to see the Cavs make a hire before, and I think that they're determined to make a hire before the NBA draft, which is June 26th for them. I think I said that already, but it's always one of my favorite nights is draft night. It's just cool. And I don't like watching the NFL draft, which is funny. I don't really like watching the NBA draft, but the Cavs have a thing for the media when they have a pick, which is this year, and it means free food, and I get to laugh. Bob Finan, who's been one of the writers here that's visited on 330 to go, he and I usually hang out at draft night, tell jokes at the Cavs facility, and nobody else laughs, but we laugh at each other. And then, of course, my good friend John Sable, who is probably going to join us again next week. We talked about it anyway. He wants to come on. People are clamoring to come on the show, but I said, I've got so much to say that I don't need you guys interrupting me. That's somewhat true. Not entirely true. Anyway, so let's recap what I think, okay, so far. I think the Cavs are leaning towards James Borrego because that's the reports we've seen everywhere. I don't have any inside information on that other than I was told they were very impressed with James Borrego's interview. Number 2, I think that Donovan Mitchell resigns. I'm going to go to the point now where I'm putting myself out on a limb saying it's a formality. Evan Mobley, formality. Isaac Okoro, restricted free agent. Cavs need to figure out what to do there. That's very much up in the air. It's not a priority. It's behind the coaching, Mitchell, Mobley. Might even be behind Darius Garland potential trade. Isaac Okoro, they love Isaac Okoro. He's a restricted free agent. That means if somebody else offers him a deal, Cavs can match. The problem with Isaac Okoro is if you sign Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell, which you're probably going to do, Isaac Okoro could put you into the tax, which the Cavs have not paid that penalty tax since 2018. And that's when you thought you had a shot at a title with LeBron James. Do you do that for Isaac Okoro? Maybe. Maybe not too. But I don't think the Cavs want to lose him for nothing. So I think that Isaac Okoro's 50-50 on coming back. I think he'd be more than happy to come back, but I think he's 50-50 in terms of can you make that work financially. Maybe. Depends on what kind of deal he's looking for and what kind of deal he gets. You know, if nobody offers him a deal in restricted free agency and the Cavs don't have to match, then they can come down in their offer, and then you're not into the tax. So there's a lot to be figured out there, but I would say Isaac Okoro is probably going to have to wait until July, the end of July, August, September, to get it figured out for him. We may not know about Isaac Okoro's return until right before training camp. Where else was I going? Oh, the most read story on HoopsWire yesterday. Not the Cleveland Cavaliers, not the Los Angeles Lakers, not the NBA at all. Well, kind of the NBA. I take that back. Our guy Enrique Freeman from the University of Akron. I found out yesterday and I put it on the website. He's climbing the draft charts, could go in the top 20 to 30 picks, which is a first-round pick. Enrique Freeman from Akron U. Great kid. Already has his master's. Graduated, was a president of his class in high school. Came to Akron. What he reminds me of is, he's a 6'7" guy who he finished third in the shooting skills, but he's a power forward. He finished third in the shooting skills at the NBA Combine, which is when people started to really notice. So I'm talking about scouts and talent evaluators. And he's looked good in these pre-draft workouts. Now, his agent tells me that Enrique has workouts coming up with Utah, with Minnesota, named a couple others. I think maybe the Cavs. Could the Cavs take him at 20? He's kind of a Swiss Army knife. The NBA is looking at him as a Swiss Army knife, kind of power forward. Even though he's 6'7", he's undersized, almost like a Draymond Green, only likable. You know what stinks is Draymond Green is one of the most likable guys in the NBA when I talk to him, which isn't one-on-one very often, but if there's been 4 or 5 of us around him, wonderful to talk to. All the guys I dislike on the court are always great. Going back to Scottie Pippen. Did not like that guy at all as a player. Got under my skin, but boy, what a wonderful guy to talk to. Anyway, back to Enrique Freeman. That's the kind of player that people are kind of comparing him to. Could he be a Draymond Green type? And guess what? Draymond Green was drafted number 35 overall. Enrique Freeman could go in that range. So, I mean, that's exciting for Akron U basketball fans. It's exciting for, what a great kid. I can tell you, I'm sure he interviews with NBA teams well. So there, new kid from the 330. Well, at least played college basketball 330. Akron U, and has had a wonderful career there. I believe all-time leader in rebounds, perhaps block shots. Very, very talented guy, good defender. So he's really climbing the draft charts. Everybody loved this defense. Like when I would talk to scouts and stuff during the season, they said, yeah, we love this kid's defense. The questions were on offense. Well, he's really been answering those in these pre-draft workouts. Cavs have the number 20 pick. That might be a reach for Freeman at there, but I think that you're going to look at all the possibilities at number 20. I don't think anybody, look, if Zach Edey's there from Purdue, the National College Player of the Year is 7'2", I think the Cavs would take him. I really do. I know that they like him. He's probably on their draft board. Be a nice backup. You develop him. He's slow of foot, but so what? He eats up space. And he's got the fundamentals offensively, so maybe that's the guy you go with. But maybe a guy like Enrique Freeman from Akron, if the Cavs don't take him, I think that there would be a good possibility that he'll go to a team, teams that draft 10 lower, like in the 25 to 30 range, tend to be good teams. And then you go there, you develop some more, and that might be a good situation for him too. So keep an eye out for Enrique. I'm sure I'll have updates as the draft gets nearer. And if he works out in Cleveland, I know he's worked out for some teams already. Couldn't get real specifics on that. So somebody to watch out for. Who just be another Akron guy to put on the map. You know what? Let's talk about this before we wrap it up. I'll take a sip out of my Cavaliers drinking mug or cup as we continue to push for sponsorship this offseason. So let's talk about this. If we were to put Akron's all-time NBA team, guys from Akron, I bet you they could beat any, or at least match up with any team in the country in their prime. Sorry, a piece of ice here, which makes this, the professional show that it's been for so long now. LeBron James, prime LeBron James. Alvin Robertson, who I don't know if many of you know who that is. He may not even start, from Barberton High School. One of the best defensive guards in NBA history, not to mention a guy who could score quite a bit. Went to Barberton High School, played at University of Arkansas, fantastic NBA player. Played with Spurs, where I think the highlights of his career came, and then also the Bucks. Alvin Robertson. Gus Johnson, going way back to the 60s. Akron Central Howard High, no longer there, was once a basketball power. Hall of Famer. Gus Johnson's a Hall of Famer forward. Okay? So, there's three right there. I don't count Steph Curry. I know everybody says, Steph Curry was born in the NBA. Or, I'm sorry, born in Akron. Because his dad, of course, Dell, was playing for the Cavs at the time. Larry Nance Jr., I've seen him. Pretty good role player in the NBA. Nothing spectacular. Good, solid. So there's four right there. I left Steph Curry out. If you put Steph Curry in, I don't think anybody's beaten Akron. But Steph Curry was born here, lived here for the first few years of his life, but he's a product of Charlotte. Let's be honest about that. Come on, help me out here. Hall of Fame center Nate Thurmond. Also an Akron guy. Just fantastic. I mean, in his prime, he was with the Warriors, I believe, when they were still in San Francisco. Fantastic. So we got Nate Thurmond. We got LeBron James. We got Gus Johnson. Barely anybody's beaten that team. We got Alvin Robertson. I'm not going to count C.J. McCollum because it would be unfair. He's from Canton. Coast to Kufus, also from Canton. I'm not counting Cleveland guys like, Clark Kellogg and those guys. I know I'm missing somebody. Somebody's got to help me out here. Nothing? We got nothing? All right. Well, I'll post the rest on my page or under the video, either on Facebook or YouTube, because I know there's more. I know there's somebody else I'm missing. Jerome Lane. We could count Jerome Lane, who had a nice career with the Denver Nuggets. Couldn't shoot free throws. Smashed the backboard. Went St. V. There's got to be more St. V's guys, right? We're missing some St. V guys. I'll tell you this. Darryn Peterson, who no longer is an Akron product, went to CBCA for a while. Can we count him? He's going to go to the NBA. He's going to be probably top 5 pick. Now in Huntington, was at CBCA, my alma mater. I would like to think, because I'm an Akron guy and did play at CBCA, that maybe I could come off the bench on that team. Or I could be JJ Redick and just coach them with no coaching experience. All right, well, we're spinning out of control here. I'm just rambling on. But think about that. Think about the all-time Akron team. And then whatever city you live in. All-time Brecksville team wouldn't be bad. I guess if you're starting a football team. You got Tom Tupa, who was, I think, a second-team All-State basketball player, went on to play for the Browns. And then, I'm trying to remember who else. Oh, Scott Roth, who played at Brecksville with Tom Tupa, and Eric Musselman, who's now the coach at USC. Those three were all on the same team. They all played Division I sports, and I believe got to the state finals when they were there. So anyway, figure it out for your town. My actual hometown is Northampton. Joe Jakubick. Oh my gosh, you're speaking to my heart right now. Joe was a 7th round pick of the Cavs, led the nation in scoring. did not quite cut it in the NBA. By the way, Joe Jakubick, I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to. You know, he was in training camp with the Cavs, and he missed a day of training camp, and from everything in fact, I'm pretty sure this actually happened. His mother called and said Joe wouldn't be there because he was sick. And I know Joe. I've never asked him this. I know, I've seen Joe around and talked to him, and I actually played with Joe a lot at Krogan Park in Fairlawn when he was in college and I was in high school. But that was probably the end of his run in training camp. I don't know if that's true or not. Joe probably wouldn't have made the team anyway, as great as he was. Left-handed, terrible form. Love the guy. One of my true basketball heroes. So, all right, I'm at 50 minutes. I thought it was going to be 30. Thank you so much if you stayed with me. Listen, before we go, here's my predictions. I predict James Borrego will be the next coach of the Cavaliers. Sorry if that doesn't excite you. Doesn't excite me. Who cares if it's exciting and wins a press conference? What are you doing on the court? Number 2, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, signing extensions within the next month. I don't want to say Darius Garland's going to be traded before the season starts, but I think it could be. I think that's up in the air. So with that in mind, I also predict J.J. Redick will be the next coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, who are currently the laughingstock of the NBA because they lost Dan Hurley. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Talk to you then.